Welcome to Orbit of Sleep. Tonight, just close your eyes and breathe. Let the weight of the day dissolve as you drift with me into a story carved in stone and silence. A story that has waited thousands of years to be told. The story of the pyramids, timeless guardians of eternity. Stay with me and let their mystery carry you gently into sleep. Imagine the endless desert, the wind sweeping across golden dunes, the air dry, the sun fierce, and yet against this harshness stand structures so vast and precise they seem impossible. They whisper secrets of kings and queens, of forgotten rituals of sweat and blood, and dreams carved into limestone. The pyramids are not simply tombs. They are voices from a world thousands of years old. And tonight, as you let your body sink deeper into calm, we will travel back across that desert, back across time, to uncover the entire story of these wonders. Our journey begins on the banks of the Nile, the lifeline of Egypt, flowing quietly under the starlit sky, the river glittering like liquid silver in the moonlight along its shores. Reeds sway and fishermen cast their nets, unaware that their simple lives rest in the shadow of history. For here the seeds of civilization first took root. Fertile soil, rich from the floodwaters, gave birth to harvests that fed a people, and out of this abundance came rulers mighty enough to command stone itself. The pyramids began not with grandeur, but with an idea, the idea of eternity. The earliest kings of Egypt believed that death was not an ending, but a doorway. They saw themselves as children of the gods, and when their earthly reign was over, their spirits would ascend to join the sun forever in the sky. But such a journey required preparation. It required monuments that could withstand the desert and the centuries. It required homes for the dead, built stronger than homes for the living. So in the sands of Saqqara, the first steps were taken. It was here that King Djoser, a ruler of the third dynasty, sought a tomb unlike any before his architect Imhotep. A man of genius and vision shaped a design that would change the world instead of building flat mastabas. The simple tombs of earlier kings he stacked one atop another, rising like a staircase to heaven. This was the Step Pyramid, the first great monument of stone, a bold leap from mud brick to limestone. And in that leap, Egypt declared to the world that its kings would not fade, they would endure. Picture the Step Pyramid rising from the desert, 6 great tiers climbing toward the sky, surrounded by courtyards, temples, and walls. Here rituals of rebirth were performed. Priests chanting to the gods, incense drifting through the hot air. The king, though gone in body, lived on within these stones, and his people believed his spirit guided the land from the afterlife. This was the dawn of pyramid building. And though simple by later standards, it was the spark that lit a fire across generations. From Djoser's bold vision, others followed, some pyramids, collapsed experiments, in weight and angle failures written in rubble. But failure did not stop them. It taught them the secrets of stone, until finally one man would perfect the art, Sneferu, the father of Khufu, the king who would raise the Great Pyramid. Sneferu's architects learned through trial, building not one, but 3 great pyramids. The bent pyramid with its strange change of angle midway. The red pyramid glowing crimson at sunset. Both still standing in the desert, like lessons carved in limestone, these experiments paved the way for perfection. And then came Giza, the plateau west of the Nile chosen for greatness. It was here Khufu, son of Sneferu, ordered a pyramid so vast it would dwarf all others, a mountain made by man. 2.3 million blocks, each weighing tons, lifted stacked aligned with the precision of stars. The Great Pyramid, a monument not only to a king, but to a belief that life could be made eternal. Here is where our story lingers, for the Great Pyramid is not simply stone, it is mystery. It is wonder. It is silence holding secrets in every chamber. Close your eyes and imagine standing at Giza as dawn breaks the desert, still cool, the horizon glowing red and gold. The shadow of the pyramid stretching across the sand, a structure so vast it seems less a tomb and more a fragment of the earth itself. Each block cut from quarries, dragged across miles by men and ropes and sledges. Each block lifted with sheer determination, the rhythm of chants echoing across the desert as thousands moved as one to raise a monument that has defied time itself. But how did they do it? How did hands without machines raise such perfection? Theories abound. Ramps spiraling upward, massive straight ramps, wooden sledges, water poured on sand to ease the friction. Each idea a glimpse into the ingenuity of ancient minds. For while we see the pyramid as still stone, they saw it as living proof of their king's divinity. Each block, not just stone, but prayer, labor, and faith bound together into eternity. And inside, within the heart of this giant corridors, narrow and steep passageways, leading into chambers of mystery. The king's chamber, the queen's chamber shafts, aligned with stars, as if guiding the soul of Khufu to the heavens. Every detail, precise, every angle, deliberate, for the pyramid was not just a tomb. It was a map of the cosmos, a bridge between the earth and the divine. As night falls over the desert, the stars above align with the pyramid, its sides echoing the cardinal directions, north, south, east, west. It is as though the builders stitched heaven and earth together, a geometry so perfect it humbles even modern science. And tonight, as you listen and let your thoughts drift, you too are walking in those shadows, in that silence, where stone breathes stories of gods and kings. And yet the Great Pyramid is not alone for Khufu's successors. Khafra and Menkaure would raise their own at Giza, each with temples, causeways, and guardian sphinxes carved in stone. Together, they created a necropolis, a city of the dead that still dominates the horizon, the pyramids glowing in sunlight, glowing in moonlight, eternal against the sands, eternal against time. This is only the beginning of the story of the pyramids, a story of vision, sweat mystery, and faith. And as we go deeper, we will uncover the hidden truths, the forgotten workers, the rituals, the treasures, the curses whispered through centuries. Now let your breath slow. Let your body sink deeper into calm. And let the desert guide you through the next chapter of this journey, where stone meets spirit and kings rise into eternity. Beneath the towering majesty of the Great Pyramid lay a world not of kings, but of workers, men and women whose sweat and strength made the impossible rise from the desert floor. For centuries, myths spoke of slaves whipped into labor. Yet evidence tells another story. These were not broken chains, but devoted builders. Skilled craftsmen, farmers drawn from villages along the Nile. They came not as prisoners, but as participants in a grand vision, believing their work bound them to the gods themselves. Picture their lives in the shadow of the pyramid at the workers' village near Giza. Rows of simple stone houses built for thousands. Bread ovens lining the courtyards. Pottery scattered in the sand bones of cattle sheep, and goats showing that the workers ate well. Rich diets of meat, bread, and beer to fuel their endless labor. For they were not forgotten. They were cared for by the state, rewarded for their service, because in lifting stone, they lifted Egypt closer to eternity. The rhythm of their days was harsh under the blazing sun. They dragged blocks on sledges, wooden runners gliding across paths, lubricated with water chants, rising like thunder as teams pulled in unison, foremen counting the pace, overseers measuring angles. But alongside the labor were moments of laughter, voices raised in song, and at night around fires the workers rested, told stories, shared bread, their calloused hands proof of their bond with the gods. Archaeologists uncovering the workers' village found bakeries, granaries, even breweries. Thousands of loaves baked daily to feed the crews, a society within a society bustling with life. This was not punishment, but duty. It was pride. And though their names are mostly forgotten, a few remain scratched onto stones. Graffiti that whispers across millennia. One crew called itself the Friends of Khufu. Another, the Drunkards of Menkara Humor, etched in limestone proof that humanity lives even in eternity's shadow. And as these workers pulled and carved, priests performed rituals binding stone to spirit in temples at the pyramid's base, incense, smoke curling toward the sky. Prayers calling upon Ra, the sun god Osiris, lord of the underworld, Hathor, goddess of love and music. Every block laid was consecrated. Every chamber blessed for the pyramid was not stone alone. It was sacred architecture, a tomb that was also a temple, a machine for the soul's ascension. Inside the pyramid, corridors narrow and steep led the spirit of the king into mystery. The passage descending into the bedrock, the ascending corridor climbing toward the king's chamber, lined with massive granite blocks transported from Aswan, hundreds of miles away, polished and set with such precision that even a knife blade cannot slip between them. The chamber itself stark and silent. Only a sarcophagus resting in the gloom, and yet aligned with stars so that Khufu's spirit could rise into Orion's belt, the celestial home of Osiris. Imagine walking these halls, torchlight flickering against the walls, the air heavy with silence, each step echoing like a heartbeat, every stone whispering of rituals, long forgotten shafts cut through the rock, pointing not to air, but to eternity guiding the soul upward, as if the pyramid itself were a stairway carved into the sky. And outside, towering above the plateau, stood not only pyramids, but temples, vast courtyards and causeways stretching toward the Nile, where processions of priests and mourners carried offerings, the dead king's body prepared with oils and resins, wrapped in linen amulets, placed over his heart to protect his soul. The funeral a bridge between earth and eternity, as chants echoed against stone, and the people wept for their living. God who had crossed into the afterlife. Guarding all of this stood the great Sphinx, its face weathered, its body carved from bedrock lion's form. Human head gazing eternally east toward the rising sun. Its meaning debated, some see it as Khafra's guardian, others as a symbol of Ra the sun god. But always it is a sentinel watching over the necropolis, its silent eyes open to both mortals and gods. The pyramids became not only tombs, but symbols of power. Each stone a reminder that the king was divine, that his rule reached beyond death, and yet with every dynasty the pyramids shrank for resources. Waned power shifted, and eventually the age of pyramid building ended. But in their silence, these monuments remained eternal witnesses to history. But the story of the pyramids does not end in the age of kings. For centuries, travelers came from across the world to gaze upon them. Herodotus, the Greek historian, writing of their construction, Arab scholars weaving tales of hidden treasures, curses, and secret chambers, medieval adventurers chiseling their names into the stones. Every age projecting its own wonder, its own fear into the heart of Giza. And today, as you lie back and let your body sink into calm, remember that these pyramids have stood for more than 4,000 years. They have watched empires rise and fall. They have seen deserts shift, rivers change, and yet they remain their stones still warm under the sun, still cold under the moon, still whispering of gods and kings and eternity. The story now leads us deeper into the mysteries, not only of how the pyramids were built, but why the rituals hidden beneath their stones, the treasures buried and plundered, the curses whispered and feared, and the timeless bond between humans and the heavens. Close your eyes, breathe slowly, and follow me into the next chapter where the secrets of the afterlife and the mysteries of the gods unfold within the heart of stone. In the heart of ancient Egypt, the pyramids were more than monuments. They were sacred bridges between the world of the living and the realm of the dead to understand their meaning. We must step into the Egyptian vision of eternity, where life, death, and rebirth were woven together like threads in a cosmic tapestry. The Egyptians believed the soul was not a single thing, but a collection of parts. The Ka, the life force that stayed near the body. The Bie, the personality that could fly between worlds. The Ak, the transformed spirit that lived forever among the stars. The pyramid was designed as a machine to protect and guide these parts to ensure the king would live forever. Imagine the funeral of a pharaoh, the body prepared with rituals that took 70 days. Priests carefully washing the body with sacred water, removing organs, placing them into canopic jars, carved with the heads of protective gods. The heart weighed, the brain discarded for thought, was seen as belonging to the spirit. The flesh dried with natron, wrapped in layer after layer of linen spells, whispered with each fold amulets pressed close to skin scarabs, ankhs, and eyes of Horus, all meant to shield the soul from danger in the afterlife. The king transformed into a mummy, not as a corpse, but as a vessel of eternity. The funeral procession wound its way to the pyramid along the Great Causeway, priests leading the way with incense torches flickering in the desert night, mourners crying out hymns of grief and devotion. The sarcophagus carried slowly as chants echoed against the stone walls at the base of the pyramid. The opening of the mouth ritual was performed, a ceremony where the mummy's senses were restored. The lips touched with sacred tools so the king could breathe, eat, speak, and live again in the world beyond. Inside the pyramid, the body was placed deep within the king's chamber, sealed away behind massive granite blocks. Each chamber aligned with the stars, the shafts pointing to constellations. Orion, where Osiris ruled the northern stars. Eternal and unchanging, a map written in stone guiding the king's Kai and Ba to the heavens. The pyramid itself was a stairway, a great cosmic ladder upon which the spirit could climb to the gods. But the journey was not without danger, for the Egyptians believed the afterlife was filled with trials. The soul would pass through gates guarded by terrifying beings, face monstrous serpents, lakes of fire, and judges who measured truth from lies. In the hall of Ma'et, the heart of the dead was placed upon a scale weighed against the feather of truth. If the heart was heavy with sin, it was devoured by the monster Amit part, lion part, crocodile part, hippopotamus. The soul destroyed forever, but if the heart was pure, the soul passed onward into the fields of paradise, a place of endless harvest, gentle waters, and eternal peace. This vision gave power to the pyramids, for they were not tombs of despair, but engines of rebirth. Each stone cut with precision to hold spells, each corridor designed to channel power from the stars, hieroglyphs carved with hymns and prayers. Though many chambers were left undecorated, the texts lived in the papyri, buried with the king words that spoke directly to the gods, commanding the heavens to receive their son, the pyramid texts. The oldest known religious writings whispered promises of immortality carved upon the walls of later pyramids. They spoke of the king ascending on rays of sunlight, taking flight as a falcon, drinking the milk of the sky goddess Nut, joining Ra in his daily journey across the heavens. In these words, we glimpse the heart of Egypt's belief that stone could bind heaven and earth, that faith could shape eternity. And yet not only kings sought eternity over time. Nobles and commoners, too, sought tombs filled with prayers. Spells, amulets, small pyramids sprouted across the desert, echoes of the great ones at Giza, for the dream of living forever spread from ruler to ruled, a belief so powerful it defined Egypt for 3,000 years. Picture the desert at night, the pyramids standing tall under a sky thick with stars, each aligned with cosmic order. Orion Sirius, the pole star above priests standing in silence, torches burning low, chanting prayers that the king's soul would rise with the sun. As dawn approached, The light struck the eastern faces of the pyramids glowing gold, as if Ra himself reached down to greet the spirit of the king. The architecture was not mere stone. It was cosmic design. Every angle, every block, every alignment meant to unite Earth with eternity. And while these structures held the bodies of kings, they also held their treasures: gold jewelry, alabaster vessels, furniture, chariots, food for the journey. Even miniature servants carved from wood called shabtis, who would come alive in the afterlife to labor for the king. Yet treasure brought danger. Tomb robbers haunted the night, breaking into chambers, plundering wealth, defiling mummies, though punishments were severe. Still, greed drove them forward. Even in antiquity, the pyramids were robbed, their riches scattered across time. Yet their power endured not in treasure, but in stone. As centuries passed, the pyramids became symbols of wonder and fear to later Egyptians. Some saw them as tombs of forgotten gods, others as fortresses filled with curses. Legends told of hidden chambers, endless treasures guarded by magic. To stand before them was to feel both awe and unease, the weight of thousands of years pressing from the silence of stone. Now, as you breathe softly, let these images settle in your mind. The pyramids no longer just monuments, but living bridges of faith and fear of gods and men. In the next part, we will walk deeper into their mysteries, the hidden passages, the legends of curses, the discoveries of explorers who dared to enter, and the secrets they uncovered in the shadows of eternity. Legends whispered that those who disturbed the tombs of kings would face curses carved into the very stones and carried by the spirits of the dead. The pyramids, though silent in the desert night, were seen as alive, guarding the pharaoh's journey into eternity, yet enticing the living with promises of gold jewels and secrets of power. Even in ancient times, tomb robbers risked their lives to break into sealed chambers, chiseling through stone by torchlight, their shadows flickering on the walls as they pried treasures from the hands of the dead. The Egyptians themselves recorded these crimes on papyri, listing trials of thieves who had dared to rob the resting places of kings. Men beaten, tortured, executed. Yet the theft continued for the wealth. Entombed was too tempting, and so, to deter them, priests and architects carved warnings into walls, threats that the violator would suffer blindness, sickness, or death in this life, and damnation in the next. These warnings grew into the legends we now call curses. Centuries later, when travelers from Greece, Rome, and beyond came to Egypt, they too heard these tales. Herodotus, the Greek historian, spoke of hidden chambers and secret passages. Arab scholars of the Middle Ages believed the pyramids held treasures placed there before the Great Flood. Talismans, spells, even knowledge of the stars itself. The pyramids became not only tombs, but storehouses of mystery, their silence filled with human imagination. By the time of the Caliph al-Ma'mun in the 9th century, explorers dared to force their way inside the Great Pyramid. Workers hammered at stone, drilled through walls until they broke into the descending passage, their torches spilling light into darkness untouched for millennia. Imagine the awe as they crawled into those narrow corridors, the air stale and heavy, the silence overwhelming, only to find not treasures but emptiness. For the tomb had already been plundered in the ancient past. Yet still, the walls themselves were treasure. The precision, the scale, the mystery of chambers aligned with stars. As centuries passed, the pyramids drew adventurers, scholars and thieves alike, each entering with hope, each leaving with questions. Napoleon's expedition in 1798 brought engineers and artists who measured, drew, and documented the pyramids, their records igniting Europe's fascination with Egypt, a fascination that birthed Egyptology, the science of studying this ancient land. Yet alongside science came superstition tales of men who entered the pyramids and never returned, whispers of diseases, curses, strange accidents that followed those who disturbed the resting places of the kings. One of the most famous stories came not from the Great Pyramid, but from the Valley of the Kings, when Howard Carter discovered the tomb of Tutankhamun in 1922. Though not a pyramid, it revived the legend of curses as members of the expedition died. Unexpectedly, newspapers filled with stories of the pharaoh's curse, but in truth, the roots of that fear were planted in the shadow of the pyramids themselves, for their massive presence inspired awe and dread in equal measure. But beyond curses, there were discoveries that deepened the mystery. Modern explorers, using science rather than chisels, found hidden secrets within the Great Pyramid shafts leading nowhere, voids, unexplained chambers above the King's Chamber spaces, untouched for thousands of years. In 2017, scientists using cosmic ray technology detected a vast cavity above the Grand Gallery, a space large enough to hold an airliner, yet completely sealed its purpose unknown. Another enigma in stone, reminding us that even after 4 millennia, the pyramids refuse to reveal all their secrets. And so, the legends endure. Curses, treasures, hidden knowledge for the pyramids are not only monuments of stone, but mirrors reflecting human imagination. Every age sees in them what it most desires: mystery, power, eternity. Now, let yourself sink deeper into calm as we leave behind the whispers of curses and step into the daily life around the pyramids, the priests who guarded them, the rituals performed at dawn, the festivals held in honor of the dead kings. For within those rituals lies the heartbeat of Egypt, the rhythm that gave meaning to stone and spirit alike. At dawn, the desert stirred with quiet reverence, the pyramids glowing with the first touch of sunlight, their massive faces igniting with fire, as if the stones themselves were alive priests gathered at the base, robed in white linen, chanting hymns to Ra, the rising sun, their voices echoing across courtyards and temples, incense curling into the morning sky. The pyramid was not a silent tomb. It was a temple of renewal, a place where each day the king was reborn with the sun. The priests tended to sacred duties with meticulous care. They poured libations of milk and wine upon altars. They placed bread, fruits, flowers before the doors of the pyramid offerings meant to nourish the spirit of the king in his eternal life. Statues of the pharaoh received oils and perfumes, their faces glistening as if alive. The rituals bound the living to the dead, assuring the people that their king still watched over them, guiding the Nile's floods. The harvests, the balance of heaven and earth. Festivals filled the necropolis with life. During the beautiful festival of the valley families crossed the Nile in boats to honor their ancestors. They brought food, drink flowers into tombs and chapels, feasting in the shadow of the pyramids. Laughter and music rising. Where silence reigned, the dead were not forgotten. They were present, sharing in the joy through the thin veil between worlds. To the Egyptians, memory was life itself, and to speak the name of the dead was to give them breath again. Around the pyramids, priests guarded rituals of purification. They read from sacred texts, recited spells that guided the soul through the dangers of the Duat. The underworld at night, torches flickered in processions. Drums beat softly. Women wove their hair with lotus flowers and sang lamentations to Isis, goddess of mourning and rebirth. The pyramids stood above them, silent and eternal, but alive with ritual. Each stone consecrated with word and gesture, each block bound by prayer. The people themselves saw the pyramids not as distant marvels, but as part of their daily world. Farmers working the fields could see them on the horizon. Boatmen on the Nile steered by their silhouettes. Travelers in the desert used them as markers of direction for generations. They were the anchors of the landscape, constant reminders that kings were divine, that life was fleeting, but eternity secure. The sight of the pyramids reassured the people that Order Maat still ruled over chaos. Yet the priests also guarded mysteries, Rituals hidden from the common eye inside temples attached to the pyramids, ceremonies were performed at dawn and dusk, hymns to Osiris, prayers to guide the car of the king, sacrifices of bull's birds, incense filling chambers with heavy smoke, the sound of sistrums rattling as priestesses invoked Hathor, goddess of music and love. These rituals were private, unseen by most, but essential to maintain the power of the pyramids as cosmic machines. Even architecture was ritual, the causeways stretching from the valley temples at the Nile up to the pyramid plateau were more than stone roads. They were symbolic journeys from life to death, from river to desert, from chaos to eternity. Processions followed these paths, carrying the king from his palace to his pyramid, echoing the journey of Ra across the sky from dawn to dusk, from life to rebirth. In the silence of the desert night, one can imagine torches flickering along these causeways, the sound of drums, the chants rising against the stars, the pyramid looming at the end of the procession, a mountain of stone glowing under the moon. Each step forward, a step closer to the divine. And even centuries after the age of pyramids ended, their presence still shaped ritual. Later kings built hidden tombs in the Valley of the Kings, but they never abandoned the memory of pyramids. For to them, these monuments were not failures, but foundations, eternal reminders that kings could rise to heaven, that order could be carved into stone. Now breathe slowly and let the rhythm of these rituals calm your mind. The chants of priests, the glow of sunrise, the scent of incense filling the air. In the next part, we will step into the myths themselves, the gods who ruled over life and death, the stories of Osiris, Isis, and Horus, myths that gave birth to pyramids, myths that turned kings into gods. In the beginning, they believed the world rose from endless waters of chaos, a boundless sea called Nun. From this darkness, a mound of earth emerged, the first land rising from nothingness. On that sacred mound, the Creator brought forth life. The sun was born, casting light into the void, and from this moment came order. Ma'at, the balance that governed gods and men alike. The pyramids themselves were echoes of this first creation, stone mountains shaped to mirror the primeval mound, a promise that life would rise again from death. Among the most powerful myths was that of Osiris, the god who ruled as the first king of Egypt. Loved by his people, he brought them law, agriculture, and order. Yet his brother Set, consumed by jealousy, betrayed him, luring Osiris into a coffin, sealing it, and casting it into the Nile. The waters carried him away, and chaos seemed to triumph. But Isis, wife and sister of Osiris, searched tirelessly across the land. She found his body hidden in the heart of a tree. She wept and sang over him, breathing love back into his spirit. But Set returned cruel and merciless. He tore Osiris apart, scattering his pieces across Egypt, each fragment buried in different towns, each guarded with shrines. Isis, with her magic, gathered the pieces, sewing him whole once more. Her devotion unbroken, she breathed life into Osiris, long enough to conceive their son Horus. Then Osiris descended into the underworld, not as a victim, but as ruler, king of the dead judge of souls, forever seated on his throne in the hall of Ma'at. And it was Horus, his son, who rose to challenge. Set the two locked in endless battle sky against desert light, against shadow, until Horus triumphed and restored order to the world. This myth was carved into the very foundations of the pyramids. For every pharaoh was seen as Horus in life, the living falcon king, protector of Egypt, and as Osiris in death, ruler of the underworld. The pyramids were not only tombs, but stairways to the divine, a bridge between father and son, between earth and sky. In their rising shape, people saw the rays of the sun solidified into stone, carrying the king's soul upward to join the eternal gods. The pyramid texts inscribed inside some of the earliest pyramids sing of these myths, spells written on walls to guide the king's spirit through dangers of the night sky, serpents, demons, rivers of fire, each verse a torch to light the path, every word a weapon against chaos. They speak of the pharaoh mounting to the heavens, becoming a star in the circumpolar sky. Those that never set the imperishable ones, so that he might shine forever above his people. And so the pyramids were both myth and reality, stone and spirit, their shape retelling the creation of the world, their walls whispering the story of Osiris, their alignment with the stars binding earth to heaven. When the people gazed upon them, they did not only see a tomb, they saw a promise that death was not an end, but a doorway to eternity. Even the gods themselves were honored in their design. The sun god Ra rode his solar bark across the sky by day and through the underworld. By night, the pharaoh in death joined him, standing at the prow of the boat, guiding the stars, fighting the serpent Apophis that threatened to devour light each dawn. His triumph reborn in the rising sun and reflected in the glowing faces of the pyramids. Close your eyes now and feel the weight of these myths flowing like the Nile through your thoughts. Osiris torn and restored, Isis weeping and strong, Horus victorious, Ra eternal, their stories carved into stone, their power shimmering in the desert air. In the next part, we will journey into the hidden interiors of the pyramids, the chambers, passages, and mysteries concealed within, where these myths became stone corridors guiding the soul into the afterlife. Step with me now into the cool darkness within the Great Pyramid, leaving behind the desert heat and golden light outside. The air grows still heavy with silence. Your footsteps echo against smooth limestone walls, passages narrowing as if the earth itself is swallowing you whole. It is here in these hidden corridors that the Egyptians shaped their vision of eternity. Stone transformed into a map of the afterlife. The first passage slopes downward into the bedrock, a tunnel descending into the earth like a symbolic journey into the underworld. This descending corridor leads to a rough, unfinished chamber far below, perhaps once meant to be the pharaoh's resting place, or perhaps a symbolic womb of the earth, a place of rebirth. Though unfinished, it speaks of intention, the king's soul traveling downward into darkness before rising again toward the light. From the main entrance, another path climbs upward, narrow and steep. This ascending passage, pressing close on both sides, leads to a grand gallery, its ceiling soaring above you like the vault of heaven. Stone blocks stacked with flawless precision, each joint tight as if cut by the gods themselves. Here the soul of the pharaoh was believed to ascend, climbing step by step toward the stars. Above the gallery lies the king's chamber, a room of red granite blocks, fitted so tightly you cannot slip a blade between them. At its center stands the great sarcophagus, once holding the body of Khufu, though empty. Now it still radiates presence. The walls bear no carvings, no inscriptions, only stone upon stone, as if silence itself were the ultimate scripture above the chamber 5. Hidden relieving rooms, stacked one atop the other, bear the weight of millions of tons of stone protecting the king in his eternal sleep. Elsewhere, a smaller chamber known as the Queen's Chamber rests in mysterious silence, its purpose debated by scholars. Some say it was for the Ka, the spiritual double of the king. Others believe it was symbolic, never meant for burial within its walls. Narrow shafts extend outward, angling upward to the stars. Not for air, not for light, but for the soul itself, channels to guide the spirit toward Orion, toward Sirius constellations sacred to Osiris and Isis. Imagine lying within those chambers, torches flickering the air thick with smoke, priests chanting spells, their voices rising and falling, the stone amplifying every sound, as if the pyramid itself were speaking in the language of eternity. Every passage, every shaft, every block was part of a cosmic machine guiding the pharaoh through the dangers of the night sky into eternal rebirth. The silence inside is not empty, it is alive. The walls breathe with secrets. The corridors whisper of footsteps. long vanished of rituals once performed in darkness of the eternal presence of kings who dreamed of joining the stars. When you close your eyes, you can almost hear the soft chanting, the scrape of sandals, the distant beat of drums carried through stone. The pyramid becomes not just a tomb, but a living temple of transition. And beyond Khufu's pyramid, the others held their own mysteries. The bent pyramid with its strange angles shifting midway, as if the builders changed their minds or responded to unseen forces. The red pyramid glowing crimson at sunset, its interior chambers vast and echoing each pyramid a variation on the same eternal theme. A dialogue between stone and sky, between man and the divine. Now drift deeper into calm as we prepare to move from these chambers into the realm of discovery and rediscovery. Centuries later, when explorers, scholars and adventurers entered these silent corridors for the first time, breaking into sealed passages, confronting the weight of 4,000 years of silence and secrets at the prow of the boat, guiding the stars, fighting the serpent Apophis that threatened to devour light each dawn, his triumph reborn in the rising sun, and reflected in the glowing faces of the pyramids. Close your eyes now and feel the weight of these myths flowing like the Nile through your thoughts. Osiris torn and restored, Isis weeping and strong, Horus victorious, Ra eternal, their stories carved into stone, their power shimmering in the desert air. In the next part, we will journey into the hidden interiors of the pyramids, the chambers, passages and mysteries concealed within, where these myths became stone corridors, guiding the soul into the afterlife. Centuries after the pyramids were sealed, the world outside them changed empires. Rose and fell, deserts shifted, dynasties vanished. But the pyramids endured silent sentinels beneath the endless sky travelers from distant lands came to marvel at them. The Greeks, arriving with Alexander the Great, gazed in astonishment. Herodotus, writing of secret chambers, hidden doors, and treasures buried deep beneath the stones. He called them mountains of labor beyond human imagining, believing they concealed mysteries of forgotten ages. Later, the Romans stood at their feet, soldiers, poets, and emperors alike, staring upward in awe, some even climbing their steep faces, carving their names into the stones, leaving behind graffiti that still whispers on the walls. Today, Julius Caesar himself passed through Egypt, his gaze no doubt drawn to the eternal peaks shining under the sun. To the Romans, the pyramids were wonders of the ancient world, relics of gods and kings, from a time when men touched the heavens. When the empire fell and centuries passed, Arab scholars arrived their pens, capturing both wonder and myth. They wrote that the pyramids were built by prophets before the Great Flood, that within them lay hidden wisdom, talismans, and secrets of the stars. Some said the stones contained maps of the heavens. Others believed treasures beyond imagining were sealed within, guarded by curses and spells. The pyramids became not just tombs, but vaults of forbidden knowledge. The Caliph al-Ma'mun in the 9th century, driven by curiosity and greed, brought workers to force his way inside the Great Pyramid. Hammers rang against stone chisels bit into the walls. Torches smoked in the dark until at last they broke through into the descending passage, their lights flickering over walls untouched for millennia. Imagine their breath catching in the stale air, their ears straining in silence as they pressed forward each step, carrying them deeper into the unknown. Yet when they reached the king's chamber, they found only emptiness. The sarcophagus bare its treasures long gone. Still, the disappointment could not erase the awe, the sheer precision of stone, the vast gallery, the weight of history pressing on every block. Their intrusion left a scar in the pyramid, the tunnel that still bears Al-Mamun's name. Yet it also reopened the path of wonder, drawing explorers from across the world to enter where no living soul had walked for thousands of years. By the time of Napoleon's expedition in 1798, the pyramids had become symbols of mystery, calling to Europe's imagination. Napoleon brought with him scholars, artists, engineers, They measured every stone, sketched every angle, their work giving birth to modern Egyptology and igniting a fever of fascination across the West. Within the silent chambers of Khufu's pyramid, they lit candles, their shadows leaping across the granite walls, feeling themselves small before eternity. It was here that Napoleon is said to have spent a night alone inside the king's chamber. When he emerged, his face pale. He refused to speak of what he had seen or felt, leaving behind a legend that still lingers a secret, known only to him and the stones. The centuries that followed brought explorers and adventurers eager to uncover what the pyramids concealed. Some desecrated, others preserved, but all stood in awe. Within those silent corridors, archaeologists brushed away. Sand engineers studied alignments. Dreamers whispered of ancient wisdom carved into geometry and stone. Every new discovery pulled humanity deeper into the riddle of the pyramids. And yet, for all their searching, the pyramids have never surrendered all their secrets. Modern tools peer into their depths, revealing voids, hidden chambers, unexplained anomalies. But even science finds more questions than answers. The pyramids endure untouched by time, guardians of mysteries older than memory. As you breathe deeply now, let yourself imagine walking alongside those explorers, stepping into the torchlit corridors, hearing your heart echo in the silence, feeling the weight of eternity pressing from the walls. For in the next part, we will wander through modern discoveries, how technology reveals what eyes alone cannot see, how the pyramids continue to astonish even in our own age. In our modern age, the pyramids still stand tall against the winds of time. Their stones weathered but unbroken, their mystery deeper than ever, before we no longer approach them with chisels and torches, but with satellites, scanners and cosmic rays. And yet the more we study, the more they remind us that they are not only monuments of the past, but puzzles for the present. Archaeologists began to notice details that earlier explorers had overlooked. The Great Pyramid of Khufu is aligned with astonishing precision to the cardinal points, north, south, east, west, within a fraction of a degree. Even with our modern instruments, such accuracy is breathtaking. How could people more than 4,000 years ago achieve such mastery without compasses or advanced technology? Some suggest they studied the stars, patiently marking their positions, night after night, until stone by stone they brought heaven down to earth. Others whisper of lost knowledge, forgotten sciences passed down from an age before memory. In the 1960s, scientists discovered that the shafts leading from the King's Chamber and Queen's Chamber were not random. They were angled precisely toward certain stars. One pointed to Orion's belt, the celestial home of Osiris. Another to Sirius, the star of Isis. Others aligned with circumpolar stars that never set the imperishable stars believed to house the eternal spirits of kings. These shafts were not for air as once thought, they were pathways for the soul guiding the pharaoh into the heavens, into the arms of the gods. In recent years, teams armed with muon detectors, particles from cosmic rays streaming from space, placed sensors around the Great Pyramid. The results shook the world in 2017. Researchers announced the discovery of a vast hidden cavity above the Grand Gallery, a space large enough to hold a jet plane, yet completely sealed, untouched. Since the pyramid was built, no passage leads to it. No explanation fits its existence. Was it a hidden chamber, a symbolic void, a construction trick, or something we cannot yet understand? The pyramid whispered again that it still holds secrets waiting in silence. Ground-penetrating radar thermal imaging and 3D mapping reveal more riddles. Some stones radiate unusual heat, as if hollow spaces lie behind them. Vibrations suggest hidden corridors and cavities. The pyramid seems alive, a labyrinth of stone hiding more than the eye can see. And though scholars debate each discovery, the truth remains clear. The builders knew more than we ever imagined their knowledge, not only of stone, but of stars, cycles of the heavens, and perhaps even forces of energy. We barely understand. Legends rise once more in the face of these findings. Some claim the pyramids were not merely tombs, but power plants, machines of geometry designed to channel Earth's energies, amplifiers of cosmic power. Others insist they are markers of lost civilizations, maps in stone that tell of a world before the flood, a wisdom that slipped through the cracks of time, though mainstream scholars reject such ideas. The persistence of mystery keeps curiosity alive, keeps minds awake long into the night. Yet beyond speculation, there is wonder in the craft itself. Consider the blocks, each weighing tons, quarried miles away, transported across the Nile, set with precision, so fine you cannot slip a blade between them. Ramps, pulleys, sleds, manpower, perhaps all these were used. But no definitive proof survives even today. Engineers struggle to replicate such scale and precision with modern tools. Some ask if we could even build a Great Pyramid today. With the same simplicity of resources, the question itself humbles us. The pyramids also hold acoustic mysteries. In certain chambers, sound resonates in haunting ways. A single word chanted within can echo like a chorus of voices, as if the stone itself were singing. Some researchers believe this was intentional, that the design amplified prayers chants, or perhaps guided the mind of priests into trance states. Imagine a ritual in the king's chamber, torches, flickering incense, burning priests chanting as the granite walls sang back to them, the pyramid alive with sound, vibration, and spirit. As technology advances, we learn more, yet each answer opens 10 more questions. The Great Pyramid alone is estimated to contain over 3 million stone blocks. Its geometry precise, its angles nearly perfect, its size so vast it remained the tallest structure on Earth for more than 3,000 years. But for all our study, we cannot say with certainty why it was built in such scale, why aligned with stars, why with hidden voids and chambers so perfectly designed. And still they watch over the desert, guardians of silence. The pyramids have seen more history than any living thing they stood. When Abraham walked the earth, when Moses was said to face Pharaoh, when Alexander crossed into Egypt, when Rome rose and fell, when Napoleon's army marched, and when modern machines first flew across the sky, through all of this they have remained constant, unmoved, eternal. As you sink deeper into calm, let the weight of this endurance surround you. The pyramids do not answer questions. They invite them. They do not reveal secrets. They awaken them in us. They remind us that even in a world of science and reason, there is still wonder, there is still mystery, there is still the quiet hum of eternity beneath the stars. And now we drift further still, for in the next part we will explore the lives of the builders themselves. Not kings, not priests, but ordinary men and women who carved their days into stone, whose sweat and breath gave form to eternity, the forgotten voices behind the monument. Not kings, not priests, but the thousands of hands that shaped the desert into eternity, their names mostly forgotten, their faces erased by time, and yet without them no pyramid would rise, for it was not slaves as once believed, but workers, farmers, artisans, who gave their strength to these mountains of stone when the Nile flooded each year and the fields lay underwater. Men came from villages across Egypt to labor for their king, not as prisoners, but as duty and devotion, earning bread, beer, shelter, and the honor of building what would outlast them all. Archaeologists uncovered the workers' village near Giza, rows of mud brick houses, storage rooms, bakeries, and breweries. The air once heavy with the smell of bread. Baking beer, fermenting fires, smoking men rested on reed mats. Women prepared food. Children ran between alleys, the village alive with laughter and noise. This was not misery, but community workers rotated in teams, serving for months before returning home. a national project binding Egypt together stone by stone. They ate well, for their labour demanded strength, bones unearthed, show diets rich in beef, goatfish, bread, onions, garlic beer flowed freely. Not as luxury, but as staple, hydrating, nourishing, lifting spirits. A worker might drink gallons each day, their laughter echoing across campfires. Songs rising with the smoke, their voices carried by desert winds to the looming pyramid above. Each man had his role. Some dragged sleds hauling limestone blocks across ramps, slicked with water to ease the pull. Others shaped stones, with copper chisels pounding with dolerite hammers. Sparks flashing under the sun, skilled masons fitted blocks. So precisely, they seemed carved by light itself. Engineers directed the flow of labour foremen shouting orders. The rhythm of work, steady as the Nile, each stroke, each pull, each heave, building eternity. Injury was common bones. Bare marks of broken arms, spines strained under weight. Yet many were healed, cared for by physicians whose skills were advanced. Splints set bones, herbs eased pain. These workers were not discarded, but valued their lives, bound to the success of the project. Even in death, they were buried near the pyramids in simple tombs marked with hieroglyphs, testifying to their service proof that they too shared in the eternity they helped to shape. At night, the desert camp came alive, fires lit, laughter mingled with prayers. Workers told stories of gods and heroes of Osiris, reborn of Ra sailing across the sky of the king who would join the stars. Some whispered of the difficulty, the weight, the exhaustion, but still they rose each morning to pull calf lift. For in their hearts they knew they were part of something greater than themselves, something that would outlast kingdoms and time itself. And women too walked these villages. They baked bread, brewed beer, wove linen, tended children. Some may have even joined in hauling supplies, their hands as vital as any stonecutter's voices, singing lullabies into the night, their presence weaving life into the shadow of death around them. To imagine the pyramids is to imagine these lives, the sweat of thousands glistening under the sun, the calloused hands gripping ropes, the laughter of children chasing each other among houses, the warmth of bread breaking among families in the shadow of rising stone. The pyramids are not only monuments to kings, but to these forgotten people who gave their breath to eternity. And as you breathe now, slowly, deeply, imagine the rhythm of their work, the steady pull of ropes, the sound of chisels striking stone, the hum of voices chanting together their labor, a heartbeat that still echoes through the silent chambers of the pyramids. In the next part, we will follow the completion of these monuments, the ceremonies of dedication, the moment when a king entered his eternal home and the pyramids stood finished gleaming in the sun, their purpose fulfilled, their silence beginning, when at last the final block was laid and the pyramid rose complete against the desert sky. The work of decades stood gleaming like a jewel, for in those early days the pyramids did not appear as they do now. Rough and weathered, their steps softened by time. No, they shone with brilliance, clad in smooth white Tura limestone polished to a mirror, finish under the Egyptian sun. They glowed like mountains of light, visible for miles across the Nile Valley, blazing at dawn, reflecting the fire of Ra himself. Imagine the awe of the people as they gathered for the dedication ceremony. Priests in linen robes carrying sacred statues, musicians sounding harps and sistrums. The air filled with incense and song. The king himself, robed in gold and white, standing before the temple at the pyramid's base, his crown gleaming as he offered sacrifices to the gods. Bulls slaughtered bread and beer poured onto altars, prayers rising with the smoke to heaven. The pyramid behind him, not just a tomb, but a ladder to the stars. The causeway leading to the pyramid became a sacred path, lined with carvings of processions of priests, gods, animals, and offerings. The walls alive with color, pigments of red, blue, green, yellow scenes of ritual and celebration leading from the fertile valley up to the desert plateau. The journey itself, symbolic, the king leaving the world of the living to enter eternity. Families, farmers, nobles, soldiers all watched as the pharaoh began his final passage. The pyramid awaiting him like the horizon of the gods. When the body of the king was carried into the pyramid, rituals of immense power, unfolded priests recited spells from the pyramid texts, guiding the soul past demons and dangers into the afterlife. The sarcophagus lowered into the king's chamber, sealed with massive granite blocks, chants echoing through corridors, torches flickering, casting shadows that danced like spirits upon the walls. Outside, the priests continued prayers offering food and drink to sustain the K, the life force of the pharaoh, while inside silence claimed him forever. From that moment, the pyramid stood not as construction, but as cosmos stone reshaped into eternity, its peak touching the sky, its base rooted in the earth, a bridge between worlds. The people gazed upon it with reverence, for it was proof that their king had joined the gods, that the order of Ma'at still ruled, that life continued beyond death. For centuries, these pyramids stood in pristine glory, their white faces gleaming their golden capstones, catching the sun like stars upon the earth. Travelers from distant lands approached them in awe, their brilliance unmatched, their silence unbroken. The desert winds swirling around their shining sides, songs of eternity carved into their very geometry. Even as new kings rose and new tombs were built, the pyramids of Giza remained eternal symbols, guardians of the West, where the sun set, where life faded into the afterlife. Their presence constant as the Nile's flood, their shadow stretching across generations, long after the builders themselves turned to dust. Now breathe deeply and let the image of these gleaming monuments fill your mind. Imagine their brilliance in the noonday sun, the cool silence within their chambers, the voices of priests whispering through eternity. In the next part, we will explore how time began to erode their perfection, how stones were stripped away, how shifting sands buried and revealed them, and how legends of curses, treasures, and forgotten kings grew around their fading light. Centuries rolled over the desert, and the pyramids that once gleamed like mirrors to the sun began to change. The polished casing stones loosened by earthquakes tumbled down their smooth faces, leaving behind the rough core. We see today storms and sands gnawed at their surfaces. Winds howled across the plateau, carrying grains of sand, like 1,000 tiny blades carving at the edges, but the pyramids, though scarred, never fell, their forms still rising unbroken against the horizon. Dynasties shifted, and new kings chose to build their tombs elsewhere, in the Valley of the Kings, hidden in cliffs away from prying eyes. For the pyramids, magnificent as they were, had become beacons for thieves. Their treasures plundered, their chambers desecrated. Yet still they stood not as vaults of gold, but as monuments of eternity. The polished casing stones that once shone like stars were stripped away by later builders. Temples and mosques of Cairo rising from the very flesh of the pyramids, blocks carried down the river to be reshaped into new walls, new monuments, new prayers. Yet even as they were dismantled in pieces, their hearts remained unbroken, their cores eternal mountains of memory. Legends grew around them as centuries passed. Arab storytellers wove tales of ancient kings and hidden magic. They said the pyramids were built by a prophet before the Great Flood to store all knowledge of mankind. Writings of the stars, secrets of medicine, hidden talismans. Some claimed they were filled with maps of the cosmos, or with treasures guarded by spirits. Others whispered that jinn themselves protected the pyramids, that any who dared to disturb them would meet misfortune. Travelers from across the world came to see them. Merchants, pilgrims, wanderers, standing in awe at their scale, their silence, their defiance of time. Some wrote that they were granaries of Joseph, others that they were fortresses against demons. The pyramids became what each age imagined them to be, reflections of fear, wonder, hope. Yet through ruin, theft, erosion and myth, they never surrendered their essence, towering above the desert, as they always had mountains of patience watching as empires rose and fell, as conquerors came and went, as the Nile flooded and receded year after year, century after century. Today, the pyramids rise above the desert as they always have. Yet their world has changed around them, where once pharaohs and priests walked with solemn steps. Now visitors from every corner of the globe gather. The hum of buses replaces the chanting of hymns. The flashes of cameras echo the flicker of torches. But still, when you stand before them, the same silence falls a weight, older than all nations, older than all empires, older even than the languages spoken around their base. At dawn, the sun climbs over the horizon and strikes their weathered faces the same way it did thousands of years ago. Bathing them in fire and gold, camels kneel in the sand, their shadows stretching long. The call of vendors mingles with the whispers of guides. But beyond all that, the pyramids remain unmoved, eternal. When the wind pauses, you can almost hear the sound of drums from ancient ceremonies, or the faint footsteps of laborers long turned to dust. Scientists now study them with tools the builders could never imagine, lasers scanning their angles, satellites mapping the ground beneath archaeologists, crawling through shafts and chambers with tiny cameras searching for voids. Hidden rooms, lost secrets, each discovery sparking wonder, each unanswered question deepening the mystery. For even today, we do not know everything. How such massive stones were moved, placed aligned with the stars with such impossible precision. And so the pyramids stand as a paradox. They are both known and unknown, measured and mysterious, explained and yet unexplainable. Some see them only as tombs, others as cosmic engines. Some call them miracles of labor, others whispers of forgotten knowledge. But whatever truth you choose, when you stand in their shadow, the heart stirs with something deeper. A recognition that you are small and brief and fragile beside a monument that has defied time itself. At night, the pyramids transform once more. The crowds fade, the desert cools, the stars emerge, ancient companions circling slowly around their peaks. The Milky Way arches across the sky, just as it did when Khufu himself looked upward. 3 bright stars of Orion's belt shining down upon the 3 great pyramids, their alignment precise, eternal. A message in stone written across heaven and earth. Close your eyes now and breathe. Imagine yourself lying in the sand as the night grows deep, the pyramids rising black and silent against a river of stars. The air cool on your skin, the silence immense, your heartbeat slow. The weight of eternity pressing gently against your thoughts, as if the pyramids themselves whisper sleep. And yet their story does not end for even now. They inspire builders, dreamers, seekers, poets, their shape etched into our minds as the very symbol of endurance, power, mystery, and eternity. They are not merely monuments, they are questions carved in stone. Questions we still cannot fully answer. Questions that invite us to wonder. And while we wonder, we remain awake in spirit, even as our bodies surrender to rest. In the next part, we will drift fully into their dream. Not of stones and measurements, but of feelings and visions of what it means to sleep under their gaze, and to let their silence carry us across the threshold into timelessness. Now, as the desert night deepens, let the last threads of wakefulness slip away. Imagine the soft sand beneath you, warm from the sun, yet cooling with the evening breeze. The pyramids towering above, silent guardians, their peaks nearly touching the stars, their angles sharp against the heavens, yet softened by shadow. They have seen thousands of nights like this, a sky filled with constellations, a horizon washed in silver light, and they whisper without words that time is endless, that you are safe. Your breathing slows as you feel the vastness around you, the pyramids steady and unmoving their weight, anchoring you to the earth. Your body sinks deeper into calm, as if you too are carved from stone. Solid, eternal, unshaken. The noise of the world fades, carried off by the wind, until only silence remains. A silence that cradles you, a silence older than memory itself. The stars wheel slowly above their patterns, the same that guided priests and kings. Long ago, Orion rising steady, the 3 stars of his belt, aligned with the 3 pyramids below, as if the heavens and the earth are joined in a single thought. A design vast and unbroken, this cosmic harmony wraps around you like a blanket of light. The knowledge that you are part of something infinite, something greater than fear or worry. The air is cool, now drifting gently across your skin, carrying the faint scent of desert stone. The stillness is so complete, you can almost hear the pulse of your own heart. Steady calm, unhurried. The pyramids loom, but they are not heavy. They are not frightening. They are reassuring, like great mountains watching over your dreams, keeping them safe from harm. With each breath, you feel lighter, as if the weight of your day falls away. You need carry nothing now. No burdens, no questions, no doubts. For here, in the presence of eternity, all those small concerns dissolve, like sand slipping through your fingers. What remains is only peace, deep quiet. Peace stretching out in every direction. Endless as the desert, endless as the stars. The pyramids do not sleep, but they invite you to. They have held their vigil for 5,000 years, through storms, through silence, through the rise and fall of countless lives. They remain, and tonight they keep their watch over you, their shadow, a shield, their silence, a lullaby. So close your eyes fully now, and imagine yourself stepping inside their corridors. Cool and dark, the air still ancient stones rising around you. Your footsteps quiet until even they fade, and you are floating weightless, carried through chambers and passages until you find a place of perfect rest, a chamber at the heart of eternity where time cannot reach and sound cannot follow. Here you may lie down surrounded by the calm of the ages. Let go, breathe slowly, and surrender to the vast silence of the pyramids. For you are safe, you are timeless, you are at rest. Let the stars drift above the desert. Let the pyramids stand eternal, and let yourself drift into sleep.